So, now I mean, I was going to ask you, and you kind of made reference to this right at the top. You've been critical of online humor. Some of the better known sites are, I mean, Funny or Die, The Onion, Mental Floss, College Humor. Are any of those ones that you do not respect, or is it a lower level that you're pointing at and saying that's just not funny?
Oh, I totally respect The Onion. I think The Onion's quite wonderful, and actually I've been friends with them for a long time. And when I first hooked up with them in like 1999, which was right after they put out Our Dumb Century, which I thought was just one of the funniest things I'd ever read. Certainly, as I said to them, it's the funniest thing I've read since the National Lampoon. I mean, it actually made me laugh so much that I had to change my pants. But they said, and I certainly saw the connection, that they felt like they were the children of the National Lampoon. And I take that very seriously in a humorous way, but I do think it's true, and I think they're quite brilliant, and I mean I think they have a certain kind of sort of closed universe that they exist in, which is quite wonderful, and it's not really what I'm trying to do. So I don't think there's really, I mean, I think we're probably in competition for the same people, but I don't see myself as being in competition with them for sort of, humor kudos. College humor, I'm referring to when I talk about frat boy humor, obviously, but they're successful, and, there are lessons to be learned from it. Funny or Die, I think, is still, I'm not sure what Funny or Die is. It seems to me to be a far more amorphous and possibly more promising website, and obviously it too is very successful. But it's hard to tell when you have that many celebrities whether it's the celebrities or the humor that's getting your traffic. So I see a big opportunity here to do funny, smart, sort of not altogether political, but certainly political in the very broadest sense of that term. The kind of stuff I've always done, and frankly, is the only thing I know how to do.
Just out of curiosity, because I've had them on the show, have you seen what Cracked is doing these days?
Yeah, actually, Cracked is not to be underestimated. I think they're quite funny too. Again, it tends to get formulaic with these sort of the 10 top things and the 5 worst things and the 18 more or less ridiculous things about, all these, the kind of list humor I find kind of repetitious, but they've got some good people there. And, well, what I was saying was that the list humor of Cracked I find rather repetitious. The 10 best things about your mother or something. They're nonetheless, there are obviously some good, funny writers there who occasionally have some sort of edgy ideas.
It's interesting because Crack came back from the dead. Mad has continued. It's still it's not. They don't really have an online presence the way Cracked has kind of reframe themselves. And yeah, some of the stuff that Cracked is doing is probably funnier than stuff that they did when they were in print, because they weren't very funny in print years ago. So I give them credit for coming back that way.
And actually, I saw the latest issue of Mad in my local supermarket the other day, and I was quite surprised to see that they were doing something about Facebook. So I mean, they're obviously keeping up with their grandchildren.
Oh, very good, very good. Well, let me ask you one more thing before we take a break. You've got, speaking of talent, you've got an all-star cast on your masthead for the final edition, people who'll be contributing. Now, tell me that these are people who will actually be contributing and not just people who've loaned you their name for publicity value.
Oh, no. I mean, I don't do that.
Okay.
It's anyone who's on the masthead there is or will be contributing. And Terry Jones of Monty Python, for example, is already on. He's already doing a regular vlog for us, which is called The View from Britain. And Mike Myers, who has not yet started his blog, will come on board when we actually go to the final edition. As its own self. rather than being a parody of something, because he's got a much more personal approach to what he wants to do, and it wouldn't have fit in the parody of the New York Times. So that's two examples of people who are definitely deeply involved in the whole process. Who else do you regard as a star?
You know what? I don't have the list in front of me.
No.
I do remember. No, I do remember. I think Louis Grossberger was on the list.
Louis Grossberger, indeed.
Right.
Louis is very, very important and a very, I think you could say, early adopter here. Indeed, the final edition of the New York Times was actually his idea, and we were going to do it in print, and then we decided it would be much better to do it online. But yeah, he's terrifically funny and hugely prolific.
Very good.
And we even have the ex-head writer and now the executive producer of The Daily Show, a wonderful writer called Steve Bodow, who's just terrific.
Well, and I think you have Jeff Chrysler on the list. And
We do indeed.
Jeff's been on the show once or twice, and then I'm drawing a blank. There was one other fellow that's on your list who's been on the show with me as well. But,
Fugelsang?
No,
John Fugelsang?
no, I know who he is, but no, he hasn't been on with us. But it's quite an impressive list, absolutely.
Yes. We have terrific people.
Well, let's take a quick break. This is Bob Andelman, and you're listening to and hopefully watching the Mr. Media interview with former National Lampoon and Spy Magazine editor, and of course you know him from Spinal Tap, Tony Hendra, whose new website, thefinaledition.com, parodies the media and at the moment the New York Times. We'll be right back.